And we're back on the forest at night. You just heard Mortis Aris and the Black Hand with Hard to Be a Bastard. And sitting here with me today, we're working on getting Mortis Aris. Don't worry, it's not them yet. What we have is something just as fascinating and with a lot more to talk about. Please welcome the head of the immaculately curated Cruel Nature Records. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Steve Strode, and that was some introduction. Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
It's good for you to be here. I've been waiting for this for a while.
Yeah.
So Cruel Nature, for those of you who don't know, is a record out of Newcastle upon Tyne, and they are, quite frankly, one of my favorite labels putting stuff out right now. The entire back catalog includes people we've played on the show before, well before I've even heard of Cruel Nature itself. People that are longtime friends of the show, Quoeleth being a great example. Some of the most interesting new projects that I've heard this year, as well as some off-the-wall, just fantastic, out-of-left-field releases. And we're going to start by talking about the one you just heard, Mortis Aris and the Black Hand. As a good many listeners of the show know, I, by trade, am a professional cartoonist. I make my money doing illustration and drawing things for people and bands and books and other sorts of things like that. And what struck out to me, and what I didn't realize before we started talking in the initial interview, is like the pre-game interview, is the gentleman behind this is actually a visual artist.
Peter Taylor. So as well as making, I guess, really good music, which in some respects, and this is just my own sort of personal take on it, I think the music and the sounds he makes is almost similar to the art in some respects. If you take that track, Hard to Be a Bastard, and the album itself, a lot of it is sort of music concrete in a way. It's sort of taken up of sounds from sort of old vinyl records, you know, found sounds, and then it just creates this sort of an amazing, foreboding, sort of, you know, almost sort of hallucinatory sort of, you know, mood. Old recordings and that. So yeah, he's sort of he's been recording stuff in the sort of the areas where he lives in, and then sort of, you know, and also in Yorkshire, Surrey, parts of the UK. Good stuff. But and then he's done all the he does the artwork as well. The covers. There's an earlier release as well, so I don't know which if you check that one out, which came out last year, I think, called Look Under.
Yeah.
That was that was a good piece as well, and that's, you know, that's sort of conceptual as well in a way.
Well, the reason I bring that up, and I do want to actually make a mention that I'll go more in depth of this when we finally get Peter on the show. But it's interesting that you mentioned music concrete, because a lot of the work I'm seeing here seems to be very deeply inspired by graffiti art. A lot of heavy stencil work, a lot of scumbling, a lot of very concrete-like textures. So it's very stellar stuff, and it absolutely matches the music. But the reason I bring it up is we've had another of your bands on the show, Quolith. And during that interview, we actually talked extensively about how they literally employ one of the members of the band doesn't even play music. He's just the visual artist. He just curates the visual aspect of the releases. And I'm wondering, because having looked through the back catalog and having just been in awe of a lot of the art direction for this, how many bands do you pick up that end up having an artist in their ranks that does these illustrations? And if, you know, in the case of bands that aren't, how do you folks go about choosing the cover arts?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So my rule of thumb when it comes to artworks, and actually the whole package itself, is I like the artist to have complete control. So, you know,
you are my favorite kind of art director. I'm going to say that. You're the best kind of art director, as far as I'm concerned.
And there's a couple of reasons for that. Yeah, is that, so one, you know, it's their work, and I just see my role in this whole process as just helping get their work out there. If because of whatever platform I've managed to create, you know, gives them some exposure that might lead them onto wider and greater things, then that's, you know, that's the aim, you know. Like, that's why one of the reasons why I've chosen cassettes is because I think it's been mentioned in a few interviews previously, is that I can take more risks with them, you know, because the cost of production isn't as great as if I was having to produce vinyl, and I've been in that position before where I've been working with vinyl. And so as a result, it means that I can basically put out what I like, but then also it doesn't, you know, the artist doesn't have to be a known entity. It can be someone completely new, and through doing that, and I guess through whatever sort of basis the label's established, on the back of that, it might lead them to greater things. So through that, I want the work that comes out to be how the artist wants it to be. You know, I'm just sort of acting as a kind of medium in some degree. So that's why whenever I'm having discussions around a prospective project with an artist, the first question I'll ask them is, do you want to do your own art, or do you want me to help find someone who can help you do it? And if it's the latter, it can be a case that they be images that they want to have considered, and, you know, and a bit of a brief around that, or it can just be brief. And I'm quite fortunate to know of illustrators and designers, and a guy who's probably done a large proportion of covers for our releases. It's a chap called James Watts, who is also a really accomplished musician, plays in a lot of bands from the northeast of England, where I'm from. So some of whom I've put out, like Lump Hammer, Lovely Wife. He also does Plague Rider, and then he's also really good, designer, illustrator, and he never tires of me handing him stuff and saying, "Do you fancy knocking out a layout for this, mate?" Or can you do? So like one of the ones I put out recently, that Bembo Stressy split, and he did the whole piece on that. He did the illustration and then the layout. So.
Hell yeah.
But then, as you were saying there before, quite often the artists will come and they've already got in their heads how they want the thing to look. Either it's like in Peter's case, I would, to be fair, and I've just thought about it, I should have a conversation with Peter. I would actually like to see some of the actual works that he's used to create some of these. Because I just see them as sort of like this, when they come through to me, the size of a sort of cassette panel. In my head, sometimes I wonder that he's got this sort of like really massive canvas or something that that he's just then digitized and then it's compressed, and that in itself is good. So yeah, it's a bit of a rambling answer there, but it's a bit of both. And for me as well, it's about the whole package. I mean, that's the whole reason why I put out physical format releases, because yeah, it's if you get especially when you can get some of the sort of like on body prints and sort of image prints on the cassette as well, when you just sort of take it out. I'm saying it, I've actually got a cassette in my hand now, and I'm saying it as I'm speaking. You take it out, you see it in your hand, you fold out the gatefold sleeve and it just looks
like
good, sounds good.
Yeah. We love rambling answers on this show, so please.
As anyone would say, I can go on a bit sometimes, so apologies.
Yeah, no worries. You got more to say, we'll just schedule you again. No worries at all. So, it's interesting that you bring up James Watts's design work. It's interesting that you bring that up, because one of the releases that I had pulled up to talk about, I've pulled up 6 releases in total, 2 of which are bands we've played on the show, 1 of which we've already mentioned, Quoleth, 2 of which are relatively new releases from the label, which we've already talked about. 1, Mortis Artis and the Black Hand, and 1 of which, actually 2 of which, are albums with dope-ass cover art. We were actually talking before the show. There's that old adage that you can't judge a book by its cover. We ain't making books here. We're making records. And there's a lot of albums that I've picked up to play on the show because of just the cover art. I look at it and I'm like, this fucking rips. There's no way the music doesn't rip. Or just because of the band name, like the last band we're going to talk about here on the program tonight. But one of the 2 records that I picked to talk about with just cover art that I imagine means the album fucking rips is designed by James Watts and is illustrated by Tom McCarthy. It's Fret, A Vanity Spawned by Fear.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, so that's my band, or until the pre-pandemic it was.
Really?
Yeah. So
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so I can go.
That was unintentional for the record. I just saw the cover art and I'm like, this fucking rips.
No, and it does, and that's because Tom, the amazing artist, and yeah, I can talk a bit about that. I mean, it's just I haven't really done it because pre-pandemic we were quite active band, and then the pandemic's kind of seen us go into a bit of hiatus here. And Tom is always, Anita's kind of had Tom passed away in October 2020. So, yeah, he's no longer with us. But he, right from the early days, he came really, was part of that whole, we considered him part of the band because of the fact that his work, I think, helped the music shine, it just aligned so well with the music. And how I used to work with him is, we would have, I guess, almost like a concept or a theme for the album, although the songs don't really loosely relate to it, but in a way they do. So if you take Through the Wound Light comes in, so that was almost like a twisting of a quote from I think it's a Persian poet from something like the early centuries, and I'm bound to have got all that wrong, but where it's all, and the idea and the whole idea behind it was that you almost have to sort of suffer for light to shine through. So so in great periods of darkness, right, light can still shine through.
Right.
And I would discuss with Tom. Basically I say to him, "Oh, we're doing a new record or something like that." I wouldn't actually play him any of the tracks, although we'd played quite a few gigs with his band, Perverts, who were like just absolutely amazing. And he was, I mean, if you haven't checked any of it out, you should check out some of the sort of like live stuff on YouTube and everything. He was an amazing frontman, and but we just used to sort of bounce around things that we were, I don't know, interested in at the time, and then I would give him an idea of what the album title might be, and I guess a feeling about it, and then he'd go off and he would just periodically send me sketches, and then in the end just come up with this amazing artwork. And I remember talking to someone a long time ago, a few years back, and it was when they were talking about doing an interview about the band. And one thing I never realized, but when I look at it now, is they said it's almost like if you lined it all up, you could see there's almost like a theme running through them. So it's almost like he was, maybe he did have a theme. He was doing all this stuff. It was one that we weren't aware of. It was all with him. So yeah. Amazing illustrator, absolutely.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Did he have a background in comics?
Yes.
And the reason I'm asking is because a lot of this is very reminiscent of like that specific era in like 2005, 2010 underground comics that were very influenced by like Jonan Vasquez. It's stellar cartooning work. I'm wondering if he ever put out any books that my audience can go check out.
Definitely, yeah.
I myself would like to read some of this.
Yeah, so he did. He illustrated some books. I think there are some comic books out there that he provided the illustrations for. Folks just do a search for it, and then it should all be out there. I mean, I'll after this I'll try and dig out some links to that, because I definitely had some shared with me. So.
Definitely. When we upload this to the archive, I'll make sure the links are in the video description.
Yeah, cool.
By the way, quick plug real quick. On my YouTube channel and the archive, we don't have a separate archive currently for interviews, but I've been slowly uploading them to my YouTube channel. If you head over to my Twitter, @SarahAllenReed, you can check out the past interviews we've uploaded and click links, buy things from artists, support the artists. Please pay the artists money. I will come to your house and bash your skull in. Give artists money. With that being stated, as far as artists that need more money, I'm going to go to the second record I've picked out, which was for the cover art. And it's just... It also very much fits with the theme that I had mentioned of sometimes you hear a band name and it just fucking rips. Lovely Wife, Best in Show. This is just The name of the beer brand is escaping me. I know it's all in like y'all side of the pond, but it's just a beer brand label with a little pug in it.
Yeah, that's Joe from the band. He's bassist of Lovely Wife. That's his dog.
The dog is the bassist?
Yeah. So yeah.
Is that now I know this
the dog's name's not Joe. Joe's the bassist, but yeah, that's the dog. But yeah, no. Yeah, you're right. They're Lovely Wife are good friends of a band, and James Watts, I think I mentioned before, he's in Lovely Wife. He's does the vocals for them. Although Joe, I think Joe's the only the original constant member at the moment. They've always had sort of a revolving cast of drummers, and they have other sort of musicians come in, and live shows and that.
Stellar cover art design.
Yeah. And live shows always used to be standard 30 minutes to the point where it was almost like timed. So as soon as they're 30 minutes up, that's it. But I think they've, especially on that album, they've kind of evolved a fair bit, because I think the first one I did for them was Problem Rock, and then after that they did. The name's escaping me now because it was an absolutely Audible Beef. Amazing album that album was the one that got us brought the label the attention to, and Lovely Wife, to The Wire, because Chris Standard, who writes for The Wire, picked up on that, because I think the first
name kicks ass.
It kicks ass, yeah, and the track on the album is just like, I think I likened it to something, like Coke or something, of someone on a Friday night while the buttle surfers sort of peer through the door watching, or something like that, and because that's exactly
all the best things in life right there. And
that's exactly what it is. It could be somewhat off just like a really rambling bottle surfers track, but Instant Show was when I think that one's got a few more tracks on it, because they were more known for their improvisations, but they started writing more sort of songs there. But the thing I like them is like with Lovely Wife is a lot of the stuff they do, right? It's just like they're serious about what they do and everything. Then there's also an element of tongue-in-cheek there, which is exactly summed up nicely in that cover album artwork for Best in Show. It just says it all.
What beer brand is that? I know I'm thinking of a specific one.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what it is now, because it's not Newcastle Brown or anything like that. Tet or something. Yeah. Okay, see, I should have been prepared there. I'll have to have a dig around.
Yeah. I mean, it's getting about that time where you are. Might as well crack one open and message me
exactly.
All right. So going from things a bit more tongue-in-cheek to an artist we've played on the show quite a bit before, that has a decidedly more somber tone. Let's talk about Bodies on Everest. Specifically the record A National Day of Mourning. We actually played this because one of the band members is a friend of mine who also works in illustration and cartooning. Sent us some shit, and we've been spinning it ever since. But it stands out from all of the other releases we've talked about thus far, just because it's literally billing itself as a soundtrack to A National Day of Mourning. What can you tell us about that?
It was our 100th release, so it's so it was a milestone in that respect.
I've been doing this for 100 records. Please pour a beer out for me.
So and on that one as well, I must admit, around the time, I remember thinking to myself exactly that. Almost, God, 100 releases. Maybe it's time to call it a day, because it comes to sort of things like that, drawing a line under things. I always think it's good to sort of go out, on a high, at a peak, rather than before things start sucking too much. And so periodically, every now and then, I kind of think to myself, we're coming up to our 150th release here, or I think, you know, we've done 200 now, and I think, oh, coming up, yeah, maybe it's time to call it a day, and then, you know, have some big event. So I thought it was quite
As
good.
far as this DJ is concerned, you ain't started sucking yet, so please keep going.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, I remember talking to Sean at the time about when we were putting it out, and I said, oh, we'll do it as your 100th release, because yeah, I liked the fact that, as you say, the title's a National Day of Mourning, and it is, well, it certainly comes across as though it's like a soundtrack to National Day of Mourning. It's a, you know, beautiful double cassette that we did in with pastel pink, or baby pink as they call it, and you know, sky blue or something like that. So again, the sort of, you know, the cassette colors were kind of at odds with the actual release itself. I think we also got Dan Hughes, who's another illustrator, good illustrator that I've used on some of the releases on us. He did the I'm trying to dig it through here now. He did Torturing Nurse. He did that one, and he's did a few others. He did a 100 separate portraits of musicians who had released stuff through Cruel Nature. So, and there was,
that's an undertaking right there.
Yeah, exactly, and you just, there's one in each cassette that went out. So if you got one of those cassettes, you would have a portrait of a musician who had appeared on a Cruel Nature release as well, and you know, you were the only person who had that portrait of that person. So yeah, I think what was good about that Bodies in Everest release, and to be fair, you know, I'd be more than willing to do something else with them, but I'm not sure whether they're active now, to be honest. Is I think they managed to get close on the cassette, the intensity of what their live experience is like, because I've seen them a couple of times, and what they do is effectively you just have almost like a sensory deprivation type thing to start with, because you're just in this kind of like blackened, airless sort of room, and then you know, the sounds will just start building up, building up and up and up, and then suddenly it'll just sort of reach this sort of crescendo, and then all these strobes will just come on like massive. It's just got a wall of amps behind it, and it's just relentless pummeling when you can, especially when you consider that I remember seeing them play show up here in in Newcastle, and it's, yeah, probably a room not much bigger than sort of average living room or something, or you know, or living rooms, and about 30-40 people in there, out like that, and then just it was immense. He took it out, you know, takes it out of you.
Yeah. So, to follow with that in, with the last release we're going to talk about life taking it out of you, we have, you know I'm going to talk about this fucking cover art. You know I'm going to fucking do it. Poundland Can't Be Arsed. A absolutely wonderful fucking hodgepodge of, you know, genres and influences that the band calls kitchen sink punk, that just very much sums up the other end of that fuck this cruel world mindset, much more in the Sleaford Mods angry direction. But I wanna talk about, who is Adam? Is that Adam Stone, the gentleman doing the vocals? Is he the one responsible for this cover art?
It is, yeah.
It
is.
When we do the archive, I need to remember to put this on the screen, because it is just the face of a man who is done with your bullshit. It's amazing. It's so fucking good. And the record itself, we were talking in the pre-show about this, reminds me of that very specific era in of all things, UK dubstep, where you had acts like Mala and Burial and all that portraying the angst and the separation from any kind of positive future with these very bassy, atmospheric, meditative beats that just reeked of London at the time. And now with Poundland, as I would put a finger on it, you have that atmosphere mixed with Sleaford Mods being very mad at you with Health doing fucking instrumentals and noise. It's a beautiful release. And I know we had spent a lot of time talking about this specifically both via email and over the pre-show interview here. But let's talk about Poundland.
Yeah,
because this is magical.
I know it's everything. I mean, Poundland's like in the UK is a chain of stores. As the name suggests, everything is cheap. Pound. Yeah, I don't think it's like
just like a US dollar basically for those Americans who come from where I come from and somehow have never left.
And I think just everything about it is from the project title to the title of the album itself. Just I think sums it up. As they say, kitchen sink punk for the 21st century. It's that sort of sense of apathy, in that, things aren't great, I can't be asked about doing out, and to some degree, and I think the lyrics are just, it's like you say, there's the vitriol, and it's amazing. And we were talking before, prior to this, when I first when I saw the project title and I saw the album title, I thought straight away, this is let's hope the music's bloody good on this one, because it's got to be it. And it is. I mean, the music's amazing, and I do kind of touched on Sleaford's mod when I was first hearing it, but there was something else there, and I think Nick Harris, he does all the sounds for it. It's just amazing what he's kind of created on this, because in some respects it's really sort of minimal and lo-fi, but then in others you get this kind of like amazing sort of noise, rocky wall of sound, that's going on, that kind of like takes you elsewhere. And then you just have Adam's vocals, going through it, just sort of driving into you. And there was something else there, and I was trying to think, what is that connection? And I think you're on point completely with that dubstep reference, because it is similar sort of territory. It is that sort of bleakness of urban life. It's doing it from coming in from a different angle. And I think that Tony X Minor is an amazing track. I think, did you play that? I think you played that one, didn't you?
That was the track we played, so far.
It's amazing. Everything.
It's incredibly... It's 13 minutes long, and it doesn't waste your fucking time for a single second of it.
Yeah, and then Cheshire's set, which is on there. So I think Adam's from Macclesfield, which is in Cheshire, and Cheshire's set is it's just an observation of I guess more sort of like wealthy people who live in Cheshire. Good. Tapeworm.
Yeah.
But when I remember discussing with Adam at the time, because James Watts has done layout work on this. Adam did the cover art. James did the layout. And when Adam was sort of quite specific in that the fact that he wanted it to just have really sort of minimal look to it, black and white, no frills, effectively, from that point of view.
Very DIY punk aesthetic. Split 7-inch core, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. But then through that, it says a lot as well, doesn't it? You know, it's a very much a less is more sort of approach.
Now
it just sums it. I think the whole package just works brilliantly there. Everything.
Definitely. Now my chemistries, again, we don't have education back home in Missouri where I come from, so you'll have to pardon me on this. My chemistry ain't the best. What chemical is that layered underneath the Cruel Nature records?
It is
on the
THC, cover. I believe.
As God herself intended. I wanted to point that out because you have like this very strung out angry man and you have weed. It's great. It's good fucking shit. So you've done 200 something releases. And if you stop now, I'm gonna come to your house and smack you. You better not stop. What's next? What have you got coming down the pipe? What can my listeners expect?
Oh yeah, well, so I've as it happens today, I was kind of looking at what schedule for April and May should be. So, Whirling Hall of Knives release from them coming through. I've put out a few of them. They're really good. They're from Dublin. Kind of like beat driven. Again, it's sort of there's almost like rave sort of sensibilities, but then I guess it's the sound of a rave that's gone wrong, and they probably they might hate me for saying that, but that that's what it sounds like to me. Aidan Baker, who's there's another solo work for him. He's he's also in Nadja. David Cullihan, so he's also in United Bible Studies. I've done a few solo albums for him. They got that one coming out. Quite a few. Probably another 4 in April and slightly similar in May.
Hell yeah. So we'll have to have you back on the show at some point in December. Just a recap so I can talk more about hopefully more crazy cover art and more stellar fucking albums. We started this interview more specifically with Hard to Be a Bastard, 27 minutes and 55 seconds long. We're gonna end it with a 1 minute and 57 second track, from the wonderful folks over at Poundland. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure having you. This is Cheshire Set, right here on Radio Dark Tunnel.
Cheshire Set.